everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we remain Kenny and Renny even after all this time, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the very first game of the year, the season opener for the Winnipeg Jets, a 5-3 loss in Calgary. We're going to dig right into this. I just got to say right off the bat, I'm always appreciative when I look at the clock and I see that it's the next day and everybody's still going. We've always been impressed by the late night, early morning Kenny and Renny crowd who don't miss this. Listen, I feel you right now. Everyone's got to get up and work in the morning. I was up in Pittsburgh at 3:00 in the morning so far, so I'm bordering on a 24-hour shift here. Hey, if I can bring the energy, you can bring the energy, because as we all know, Renny is the least of everybody in this whole equation of the Kenny and Renny family, the chat room, Ken himself. I'm the one who brings it least, but I'm going to bring it here tonight. I'm going to make sure that the energy is up. I got you covered, one could say. And just like, hey, let's get in and talk about it. Just like our friends at the Johnston Group, they've got you covered. That is back this season. We are proud to say the Johnston Group with their Got You Covered award. We want to hear all about the plays of the game that you thought most exemplify having people covered. Good defensive plays, good defensive sticks. We can do saves, but you may want to save that for something else special, because it will pay to save off and do the right thing there. But I want to get into this game quick, because I want to bring Kenny in. He's working hard. He's on the scene in Calgary right now. I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis of the game. I take a look at this game, and if I'm a Jets fan, I think personally it gives me a lot of hope. Why? Well, I'll tell you this. At the end of the preseason, we were all talking about the idea that the Winnipeg Jets were going to take some time to really be in the season mode. I think we know the Jets could have used a couple more preseason games. The way things went, the way they were banged up, the way the sicknesses went, it really wasn't what the Jets needed it to be. They needed a little bit more. And for the majority of that game, I was looking at that game and I was thinking, the signs of rust that I was expecting to see, the signs of discombobulation I was expecting to see, I didn't see a lot of it until a couple key moments of the game. I have to say, all four lines on the Winnipeg Jets this year have changes, right? Gabe Vilardi is new on that first line. The second line, they're trying things out with Cole Perfetti, and they've got a whole new unit going on there. Alex Iafallo goes to the third line. They got to figure him out. Looked like it worked here tonight. That fourth line, you've got Nemesnikov dropping down there. You've got Kupari, a new fourth line center. So there's change on all those lines, and all those lines really didn't have the runway you would expect in the preseason to kind of really lock in and get into sync. So for the most part, the way they played the system, I was pretty impressed with tonight. Now, I have to say, it looked to me like the Jets were getting back to Rick Bowness hockey. And I think that, never mind, I'll just go right out and say it. I think the Jets were back to playing Rick Bowness hockey. They were pressuring the puck at every point. This basically, for a good chunk of the night, was the Calgary Flames getting the puck and just giving it right back to the Winnipeg Jets, because the pressure that the Winnipeg Jets were playing was really wearing them down. I think it showed on the shot clock. I think it showed on the high danger chances. Look, the Winnipeg Jets were the better team in this game here tonight, but the mistakes got the best of them. And I take a look at it. I'm not going to break it down right now. We can do that later. But that shorthanded goal there is a massive mistake made by not one, not two, not three, not four, but five of the players on the ice that leads to that goal. And there's a series of mistakes that are made on the game-winning goal that is scored late. Some will say inexcusable. I know that we are already seeing in the chat room, a lot of people are all over Nate Schmidt. There's more blame to go around on that last goal, but Nate Schmidt, no doubt, deserves his share of it. We can get into how that's happening. And remember that one of the players that really didn't get the runway they were looking for in that preseason was Nate Schmidt, who was out for a good chunk of time. Not making excuses, but we have to lay the facts out and kind of take a look at how things got to where they did. But I take a look at this as a near complete game that the Jets were pulling off that was derailed by key mistakes at key moments of the game. Other than that, like I said, I look at this and I think there's hope. if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, based on what I saw here tonight. And I do have to say a better start than I was expecting, even though the Jets lose 5-3 in their opener against the Calgary Flames. That's my take on the whole thing. But I want to get the take of the man with the best music in the business, and you know who that is. Time to bring him in. Here comes Kenny. No, man, I will never get sick of hearing that song. You know what else I'll never get sick of, Ken, is you popping on the show and looking like the dapper gentleman you look like right now. And, of course, one of the big reasons will be that you head down and you see Frankie at the boys and the boys of Vittorio Rossi. I know I'm not living up to it right now, but maybe you could say I lived up to it last night. Anyone who watched Connor Bedard's first game, I was dressed up spiffy. It was Frankie picked out threads. He did a great job with it. I remember being in the store and him laying it out for me and saying, see this tie? You wear this tie with it. See this tie? Don't you dare wear this tie with it. I follow Frankie's rules, and that's why sometimes I look like a somewhat dapper human being. I got to say, I even got a shout out from Emily Kaplan from ESPN for the blue with the purple tie. So listen, if you want to look like Kenny does tonight, or maybe like Renny did last night before going to bed at 1 o'clock and getting up at 3 a.m., you know what to do. Head down and see the boys of Vittorio Rossi, Frankie and the boys. You're looking great, Ken. Jets, I thought, looking great for a good chunk of the night. Things got derailed at some point. How do you break down that game?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I mean, I agree with your assessment. The Jets, a lot of nights with that effort, they win the hockey game. I would say that they made a couple of big blunders that ended up in the back of the net. There's no doubt about that. I would say that, you and I were talking before the show started. The icing is a tough error by a veteran player. It looked like Schmidt was just trying to kind of flick it on net, thinking that he could help his teammates get a change there late in the game, but the puck sort of bounced to the right of Markstrom and went wide. And then after, Rasmus Kupari lost the draw to Elias Lindholm, he actually made a nice hit, and he thought it was a hit and pin, Sean, along the boards, but Lindholm spun off of him, and by the time Kupari realized that Lindholm kind of spun on the inside position to him, he was in a chase position and couldn't catch him, and there it was, puck on his stick, and that was it. So, it's never one play that ends up costing a team the game. Obviously, that sequence of events is very disheartening for the Jets. They rally late in the third period. They score a big goal. They get a big goal from Scheifele. They show a lot of character in battling back, even though they were sort of chasing the game, but then give up a late one, and they're kind of left with that sour taste in their mouth. Sean, we talk all the time about the difference between making the playoffs and not. I mean, Rick Bowness talked about it in the morning. The Flames missed by 2 points, and they had 31 goal losses. So if the Jets get this game to overtime, instead of giving up the game winner late in the contest, there's a big difference. And we'll get to this right now. S. Elder, how about calling a timeout before the faceoff? The NHL abolished the ability to call timeouts after icing. It's meant to eliminate, the advantage a defensive zone team can get. So that's not allowed, and we'll get to it right away. I mean, the Jets thought there should have been a whistle and a stoppage before the shorthanded goal by Rasmus Andersson because they thought it was played with a high stick, and I don't think they were able to challenge that play because of where it happened in the defensive zone for them. So just for a couple of things for clarity's sake, that's where things are at on those fronts. I would say here, Sean, one of the biggest things about the Jets going into the year, what would their power play look like? Well, the first unit did a lot of things. Their puck movement was exceptional. They had a ton of grade A opportunities from the slot. Gabe Vilardi looking skyward on multiple occasions. He was, I thought, excellent. in the game this evening. Ton of shots and scoring chances. Let's go to the sheet right here. We've got Gabriel Velarde, 21 minutes and 4 seconds, 7 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts. Yeah, some of them came on the power play, but man, I sure liked what that unit did. Some folks talking, what's Alex Iafallo doing on the top unit? Well, all I saw him do was get a bunch of puck retrievals and buzz around the offensive zone and move the puck around very crisply. They took the puck to different places. It was not a predictable power play like it had been for a while. And at the end of the day, their puck movement was excellent. Their chances were very good. And yeah, I mean, people can say, of course, there were mistakes in the game. As Kyle Connor said after the game, if the Jets play that game with any regularity, Sean, they're going to win a bunch of hockey games. And this is not rainbows and unicorns territory. And to your point, coming out of the gate, the Jets gave up 22 shots on net. That is a dominant defensive effort for a team in the first game of the regular season. I agree with you. I thought that there were times where Ehlers had a couple of great bursts, a couple of, clapper opportunities. But overall, he looked like a guy who hadn't played in the preseason. That's not a knock on him, but he has more to give. And, but now we don't know about the extent of the injury. It was a little bit rushed getting down, and I'd meant to ask Rick Bowness about it afterward. And there was a pause in the questions, and it was it after 2:08. So don't have an update on Nikolai Ehlers' status. You saw it a little bit better than me. All I saw was him hunched over. Looked like he kind of went into the boards a little bit awkwardly and was holding his left arm hunched over on the bench. What I would say, though, Sean, he didn't go straight to the room. So for me, it might have been an example. Maybe it was more just being winded, and it wasn't his neck. He was definitely grabbing and leaning, hunching forward with his arm, I thought. So, I mean, we'll see if it was just a stinger or if it's anything serious. Jets are off on Thursday. They will be back on the ice Friday. So I don't anticipate we'll have much of an update before then. And hey, Baby Yoda says Markstrom was excellent. Well, Markstrom, he had a bit of a softie. Yes, I give Kyle Connor a lot of credit for the subtle move he makes at the blue line, Sean, to create the time and space required to get to the middle and then use Jordan Osterley as a screen. And he really fooled Markstrom with that wrister. But overall, yeah, Markstrom made a ton of great saves. And I would also say this, Sean, it sort of gets lost in the shuffle because of how the game ended. But the Jets came out of the gate on fire. They had like 14 shots on goal in the first half, but then they took consecutive minors 2 minutes and 10 seconds apart, and I felt like it disrupted their rhythm a little bit. And obviously they gave up a power play goal late in that minor to Josh Morrissey. Terrible luck. Like, people were saying, oh, well, tough play. Well, the puck was rolling and it had bounced, and Josh was trying to clear it after a loose puck. Like, that's not a mistake. It's an accident. So there's a lot of good out of this game. I mean, were there some breakdowns? We'll get into them. But I would say overall the Jets were pretty solid against a pretty hungry opponent. And as mentioned earlier on, I mean, before we get into more of the analysis, love the tribute that the Flames did here for Chris Snow.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome to see Kelsey on the ice, and just the emotion that she felt. And the emotion in the building, I mean, it was I'm sure you could hear it on TV, but the roar was exceptional, standing ovation, and you could really tell at a real big time of need, obviously tough for the family, but you could tell what it meant to Kelsey, the way she hugged Michael Backlund and Adam Lowry and sort of just looked up to sort of soak it all in. Hats off to the organization for what they did this evening, and the hockey world and the world in general was looking here and sending their thoughts and love to the Snow family.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was an epic trip to the buffet by Kenny Weeb, who is in playoff form. After that, comes roaring in, covers most of it here. I'm just going to touch on a couple of those things. Yeah, Ehlers is racing to try and stop that that empty net goal. He goes into the boards. I thought it was going to be one of those things, Ken, where he kind of dives and doesn't regain himself.
Right.
He regains himself in his standing, still goes into the boards. It looks like a shoulder to me for the people who are asking. They were talking about, some people were talking about ribs. I think it was a shoulder thing. You can kind of see Josh Morrissey after the goal is in. He takes a look over, the camera kind of catches him looking over, and he's got that kind of, oh man, look at this now kind of look on his face. That's the last thing they need, is to be, after losing him for the preseason, losing him all over again. Just to touch on things quickly, what I was talking about with that first goal, the shorthanded goal.
Yep.
And I know that people are touching on the idea that there was a high stick that was missed. That kind of stuff happens in games. I do think the high stick was missed, but to your point, I think you have to get into the zone. It's the same deal. It's like if you get in the zone, right, and there's a high stick or something that is a missed call, but if you exit the zone and then go back in, it's like the clock starts again, right? The consideration is that once that is over, it's over. So if you're not even in the zone, I guess the NHL plays it, you can't go back and make that call. But the real crime on that situation is that they're heading down the ice, and it is a 5-on-4. The Jets have an extra man there. It's not just a 5-on-4, Ken. It's a 5-on-2. Two of the Flames players have exited and are heading to go change at that point. There's 5 Winnipeg Jets and only 2 Calgary Flames players, one with the puck and one a trailing defenseman, and every single guy locks in on the puck carry. Now, this is the interesting part, right? You're talking about training camp. You're talking about the Jets power play, which did look pretty good. I thought, Ken, they don't practice a lot of defensive zone stuff in training camp. So this is one of those things where you get caught early in the year. But both defensemen, the center go down and collapse on the puck carrier, or to the defenseman collapse on the net. The center collapses on the puck carrier, but then it's Alex Iafallo and Kyle Connor who follow in to put pressure on Lindholm, and that leaves Rasmus Andersson wide open. That shouldn't have been the case. Again, it was 5-on-2. This is a case of a fairly egregious error, a massive breakdown in the zone. So that's the goal that has the Winnipeg Jets chasing for the majority of the game. They tie it up. To your point, and I'm just going to go over this quickly. Yep. Nate Schmidt, I get why people are upset. I know what he was trying to do. You're right, Ken. He was thinking at that moment, and I went back and I watched that shift. There were 2 or 3 times the Winnipeg Jets tried to get the puck out. Nate Schmidt was one of them. It got caught up and bottled into the zone. So I get that mindset that a player falls into, where he's thinking, if I don't get this thing out, if I turn this thing over, I'm really going to mess ourselves up. You can't turn the puck over that many times in a shift. So I do think there's a little bit of even an icing would be better than turning the puck over. So I'm not going to take the chance. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to float the puck down the ice and get it on net. So it's not an icing. He very much did what he did on purpose. But I agree with the people in the chat room here who are upset with it, because I don't think it needed to happen. He had enough ice that he could almost basically get it to the blue line. But even if you get it across the blue line and turn it over going the wrong way with guys heading down to change, you can put yourself in a tough spot. So I don't think it's as cut and dry as people make it. I still think it's a pretty egregious error, though. But yeah, you touched on it. Kupari goes down and he takes that draw, loses the draw. It goes into the corner. And is it Lindholm who scores the winner again?
Yeah,
Ken?
Lindholm. Yeah.
I think you were a little bit more lenient on this than I was. Kupari goes into the corner with Lindholm, and it is not him getting beat back to the net. It's Kupari literally stands there and is watching and does not try to get back to the net, and Lindholm does. And when I see that play, Kupari's caught watching in that situation. It's the old caught watching the play. And what it is Lindholm goes into the boards and stops and has a little bit of a look. So he's not looking like he's busting back to the net. And I think what happens is Kupari falls into a false sense of security. And then all of a sudden Lindholm starts moving. By the time he does, it's too late for Kupari. He can't get there in that time. The way Kupari skates to the bench after that, he knows it was a big mistake. That is a long series of mistakes. Kupari has to own his part of it. Schmidt has to own his part of it. Rick Bowness doesn't, because like you said, he couldn't call a timeout in that situation. But to me, this is, and I'm just going to say this quickly because boy, oh boy, Baby Yoda is all over me. If you really need to ask the question 10 times, Baby Yoda, yes, I watched the game and I'm breaking down what I saw in the game. I never said the Jets didn't get goalied. In fact, if you were listening, I was saying that I think the Jets, for the most part, they play like this, they're going to win. This is the pattern. Hey, we're talking Baby Yoda. This is the way. It's the Rick Bowness way. If the Jets play like this, they're going to do fine. And how they played put them in a position where, yes, they fought they got beat by a really hot goaltender, but that's not everything. They were back in the game. It was a tie game. Markstrom didn't score the game-winning goal in this situation. Errors played a role in this. So, yes, I know you're very concerned, and these are great questions, Baby Yoda. Did I watch the game? I did watch the game. I'm breaking it down. Just pay a little bit of attention, and you'll see that. Ken?
Just a quick one. I wasn't taking Kupari off the hook, but I think it was more he made the hit on Lindholm, but Lindholm spun off of him, so he didn't have the seal. That's the issue for Kupari. And in terms of the standing there, I think it was more jelly legs, Sean. They had been out there for a minute 15 to 20, and I think he just kind of was surprised he didn't still have him sealed on the glass. And when he was a step behind, by then it was too late to catch him. And that's one of those where he's like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I let him spin off of the check. So I'm not taking him off the hook for the mistake. I just don't think it was as much puck watching as it was the seal didn't happen, and that allowed Lindholm to kind of beat him to the net. But yeah, I mean, regardless, it's not a good play. He lost the draw. He lost his man. His man scored. I mean, I liked the burst that Kupari had in the first period. He had a nice scoring chance, but he couldn't, lift the wrister over the glove of Markstrom. But that's one that's not going to look good on the video. And Rick Bowness showed confidence in Kupari. He had him on the ice late in the game. Wasn't with his regular line. He had him on the ice and lost the draw and lost his man on the winner. So, I mean, that's a tough shift for him. One quick one we haven't touched on. I mean, man, Nino Niederreiter, the chance that he had in the early stages, I think he was an absolute disbelief. But the one especially, he's got half the net, and somehow Markstrom doesn't stop it. It just hits him. Like, Markstrom is looking, he's in the right-hand half of the net, and somehow he hits the left pad. So, pretty wild chance there. Anyways, I mean, lots of interesting things happening in the game, but we should dig into, I guess.
Well, here I
it's
want
already
to do a
23
couple
minutes
things.
in here. Yep.
I know. So I want to get into some things here. We've got a lot to talk about. What I'm going to do, we're going to come out of this. We're going to break down the lines while the audience has a little bit of fun. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about our sponsors is they give the opportunity for the audience not only to take part in the show, but a chance to get goodies. So we already mentioned the Kenny and Renny OGs and the Johnson Group. We want to hear about your Gotcha Covered played. Of course, the TCB, Trans-Canada Brewing Company Lamplighter is back for another season. We locked it in because you know what? We found that our audience, they love things that are delicious and frosty and ice cold. And they loved it all year long. And so the call went out to TCB, and they answered. Once again, every show we are giving away a frosty, delicious 8-pack of the Nectar of the Gods. You know it, the Lamplighter Amber Ale from Trans-Canada Brewing Company. All you have to do is tell us your Lamplighter of the game, your goal of the game, and you're automatically entered to win it. We will announce the winner during the next show. So get at it, people. We want to know that Scheifele one was gorgeous. That was a beauty, no doubt. I like Kyle Connors was maybe a little bit of a softie, no doubt here. I like the grind in that third goal that Lowry starts the passing play. Actually, I give credit to Mason Appleton, who kept it in the zone, got it to Lowry, moved it along. Nice to hands in tight by Alex Iafallo, all stuff that we can talk about. But let us know what your Lamplighter of the game is, and you will automatically be entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale from our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. You know what to do, everybody. And hey, we've got even more goodies to give away. Ken, I got a question for you. Have you ever made it rain before?
No, I have not.
You've never made it. I made it rain once in my life. I was at a poker tournament, Ken, and I went all in and I lost in spectacular fashion. And I flipped the table and there were pennies flying everywhere, Ken. It was raining pennies. That's Renny's version of making it rain out there. The Keg, our newest, or one of our newest sponsors, they're going to make it rain in a far more impressive way than Renny or Kenny has ever in their life, because they are on board and they will be giving away every show, 82 shows this year, the Keg will hand out a $50 gift certificate to the Keg. And all you have to do is tell us what your save of the game is. The Keg save of the game. You got to write the Keg in there or it doesn't count. But you tell us what the Keg save of the game was, and you can save $50 on your next trip to the Keg. And of course, there's 3 locations in the city, one on Gary Street downtown, one in St. James, and one on South Side. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. The Keg is kind of a special place for me. I think I owe my marriage to it because there's been a couple times, Ken, that the wife has got a little bit hangry, a lot hangry, like out there hangry, where it looked like it was all unraveling. And I didn't know if Renny and Mrs. Renny were going to make it. But, you know, when there's that extra special hangry, you take them for that steak and lobster over at the Keg. That's the kind of stuff that gets you through the tough moments in a marriage. So, hey, if you're looking or in the situation that Renny and Mrs. Renny find themselves in sometimes, why not take a $50 gift certificate to go and make it that much more special of a night at the Keg? Are one of our newest sponsors here. So happy to have them on board and so happy that they're doing what they can to make sure that the viewing experience is as good as it can be for the K and our listeners. Thank you so much to them. Get to work, people. We want to hear your saves of the game. Ken, I want you to do a detailed breakdown of the 4 lines. As I was saying at the beginning of the show, something new on every line. I think they did a pretty good job of getting to Rick Bonus's system, considering the lack of runway we saw in the preseason, the fact that there's a new element on each of the 4 lines that need to get used to, and they didn't have the runway to do that. Give me an idea of what you saw from the first, second, third, and fourth, Ken.
Yeah, I saw a lot of good from the top line. I mean, I think it was maybe, I wouldn't even say quiet start for them because Kyle Connor scored in his 6th consecutive season opener to tie an NHL record. That line generated a lot in the game, Sean. Mark Scheifele, 3 goals, 7 shot attempts. Kyle Connor had 5 shots on goal and 10 shot attempts. And Gabriel Velarde had 8 shot attempts, including 7 shots on goal. Outside of scoring, like they had 2 goals. So outside of Velarde cashing in one of his glorious chances, there's not much more that line could have done for me. I thought they were, and for all the people, I get it. Every player has faults. Like if people thought that Mark Scheifele was just going to cash in his checks with the new deal, his back check, I want people to recognize the back check on one of the 2-on-1s. Like he really hustled back, caught Elias Lindholm, and finished the play. So for people who thought he was just going to take his money and be a one-way player, there's an example. So does he have to do it over 82 games? Of course he does, but that's a good start. In terms of the second line, I thought they had a good start in terms of Niederreiter generation early. I thought Cole Perfetti, I didn't mind his game at center, but there's room for improvement. And we knew that was going to be the case. He's a young player. He's got to get adjusted. Let's see I don't have the face-off stats here. I thought he lost a few here and there, but Ehlers had glimpses, but there are 2. He had 3 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts. So he was involved in the game, but he also looked like a guy who hadn't played any preseason games at times. So I would say, too, I think for folks thinking it's an ominous injury, I don't think that's going to be the case, and we'll get an update on Friday here. But in terms of the third line, I thought, we've been talking a lot about Mason Appleton, Sean, throughout training camp, and kind of wondering, Mason Appleton's a guy who's got to produce offensively, or else he might find himself in the mix to maybe be bumped for Vladislav Nemestikov at times. But I actually thought Appleton's game was quite solid. Lowry's line was pretty steady. Iafallo is the, Swiss Army knife we've been talking about all training camp. So I thought that line was pretty good overall. And fourth line had some glimpses. I'm with you. I thought Barron was noticeable. Nemestikov had a couple of bump-up shifts where I actually liked his game quite a bit. But overall, I would say, okay, so what we knew from Rick Bonus, he told me and told the group the other day, his plan was 10 to 12 minutes for that fourth line. Well, Vladislav Nemestikov, 9:57. Rasmus Kupari, 11:17. And Morgan Barron, 8:55. So just under 9 minutes is the lowest iced total for a fourth line team that was chasing the game for a good chunk of the game. So Rick, true to his word here in this game, I thought, and for good reason. He played those guys because they deserve to be playing. What that means for the top line, we'll see as we move along here. But overall, the group I thought was solid. Josh Morrissey is the time on ice leader. Kyle Connor, the most ice time up front at 22 minutes, and that's because he was pretty dangerous throughout the contest. What do you think of the line permutations and combinations?
Well, I got to say the broadcast crew, my fellow Sportsnetters, were very impressed with the new man on the top line, number 13. Hey, I thought he had a really good game. I thought he used his size. I felt like Kyle Connor played a little bit better with Velarde than Scheifele did. I think there's going to take some getting used to. We've had a conversation about that. We talked about it on the last show. Can he make the transition from that Blake Wheeler style of game to a more direct style of game that we see Gabe Velarde play? But I think on a night where two of those guys get points, it probably points to a little bit of the freedom that may be involved with having a guy like Velarde on their line. I thought Velarde made some nice passes. I thought that line did a pretty good job of bottling the other team up in their own zone. He plays the boards really well. So, I mean, it's not exactly a shoot the lights out kind of situation for Velarde on that line. But, hey, the other two guys getting a goal on your line, I think things are okay. Second line, I think I'm giving them probably about a C on the night. Ehlers, like you were saying, had some moments early on where you're like, okay, he's back, here he goes. But it's just like last season, right? Like if you remember, Ken, a big storyline last season was that Ehlers wasn't getting enough ice time. And then when you talked with him after a while, he'd said, like, I don't feel like my legs are there. I haven't really caught up to where I need to be. And my ice time reflects that. Like Ehlers didn't have a problem with how much he was playing last season, even though everyone else was kind of really railing about it because he didn't feel he was there. Well, I feel like we saw a little bit of that tonight, training camp, and the lack of the ability for him to really wind things up in training camp, I think showed tonight. Perfetti took a couple big hits here tonight. I thought it's kind of like that Ville Heinola situation. I think we're going to see a little bit of the Ville Heinola arc with Cole Perfetti in this spot. Last year, we went through this extensively. He was a little bit hidden on a line with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor. Hard to hide when you're the second line center now. And I think what we saw tonight was those flashes that Ville always showed, right? Every time Ville came up, he'd show there was that offensive flair there, but then there'd be some of the basic tenets of the game missing from his game. And that's the thing that was keeping him from staying full-time in the NHL. Well, it's not going to keep Cole Perfetti from being full-time in the NHL, but it may keep him from being a really effective second line center right now. I just thought sometimes he got muscled off the puck. Those scenarios where, you worry about his size in that position. Is it going to catch up with him? I thought we saw examples of that tonight, but we also saw examples of, him. There was a really, really great play. Niederreiter, the Niederreiter, one of the three chances that I was telling you about, the one where he kind of draws in late and it's a blocked shot in that situation there.
Hanifin.
Yes,
right?
yes. Hanifin blocks
almost like a two-pad stack almost.
Well, it's kind of a nothing play, except Perfetti has the puck in the neutral zone, kind of goes at the defenseman, makes the defenseman commit to him, kind of moves towards the other defenseman, makes him a commit, passes it across, and then all of a sudden that defenseman has to bail and go get the guy who's blazing down the wing. And then, which I believe was Ehlers in that situation. And then he takes his man to the net and creates that vacuum in behind him for Niederreiter to get that puck. That's a really great scoring chance, and it really is all the kind of hockey IQ of Cole Perfetti that makes it happen. So I think you're going to see a real mixed bag from him going forward. A lot of those really nice plays. I think you're going to see some nice goals scored, that he really is the mastermind of those things, but it's going to be learning on the fly as a centerman, and that's going to be the balance that the Jets are going to have to straddle here for the next little while. Moving to the third line, I thought Adam Lowry, like I said, played really good. We saw, you know what you're going to get from Adam Lowry at this stage. If you can get offense from him, that's absolutely great. Mason Appleton, you touched on it. I've thought in the past, and I think I said it on our last show, I think that if you can get a guy like Niederreiter on that line, that could become a really, really dangerous third line. I think if the Jets really want to boast the depth that we've talked about. You have to score more on the third line. And I think Mason Appleton, while a really good pressure player, I don't necessarily know that he can fill that role, but you know who can? Alex Iafallo. We've seen how good his hands are in camp. You saw it again here tonight. You see how good he is playing on the power play, and that redirect in tight is just, we're going to see a lot more of that. Great player. I just thought his game was I won't say flawless, but it was on full display how much Alex Iafallo can help this team going forward, both defensively and offensively. Fourth line, we talked about, I think we agree on that. Morgan Barron stood out the most for me. I don't know that I like Nemesnikov on that line. I'd rather see him further up the lineup. I don't know that utilizing him as a fourth line winger really is something that works. I think he's got more skill than that. I think he showed that last season when he played a lot of time on the second and third line. And this is the last one I'll get to, and I'll bring the behind the scenes conversation that has been happening at camp for a long time. I've taken a look at Rasmus Kupari, and Ken and I argued about this a little bit. Scott Billick and I, Dave Minuk was in on this. I really felt like all I've heard about Rasmus Kupari is like that it's like an instantaneous win for the Winnipeg Jets. You saw people talking about it and the haul that they got back for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Well, you get Alex Iafallo, Gabe Vilardi, and Rasmus Kupari, and everyone thinks it's a win. I've just heard so much from a lot of the media talking about like this automatic that Rasmus Kupari is here. I've heard suggestions that he instantaneously makes this the best fourth line that the Winnipeg Jets have ever had, which I thought you very astutely poured ice cold water on, Ken, when you said Brian Little was the Jets' fourth line center in the playoffs in 2018. Really, really good point there. I have not been seeing the same thing a lot of my contemporaries in the media have seen. I've watched Rasmus Kupari during camp. I haven't seen much of an offensive flair out of him. He does not strike me as this insanely suffocating fourth line center that a lot of people had suggested that he would be coming in here. I'm not saying that he's not going to be a great player. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of people who loudly beat the drum and rang the gong on Rasmus Kupari's arrival, and I haven't seen that arrival yet. I didn't see it tonight. He didn't necessarily stand out to me too much in the game, other than when he was getting beat to the front of the net for that game-winning goal. I need to see more from Rasmus Kupari than I saw from him tonight for me to believe that the Jets have a fourth line that has the kind of depth that can grind people. Listen, if you've got your first line that can score, and if you're trying to find your second line with Cole Perfetti, if you've got chipping in from the third line, the very least you need is for the Jets' fourth line to really make their mark by winning, the territorial battle, like the football scrum kind of thing, but be a hard line to play against. I didn't see that, and I haven't seen a lot of that from Rasmus Kupari. I'll be watching to see if he can get to the place where a lot of people have been telling me he's already got to. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's early. He's a young player. I would say here's a guy who hasn't scored a lot at this level. He's a first-round pick, and when first-round picks sort of get pigeonholed into a fourth-line role and haven't produced, then you start to lack confidence offensively. But the one thing that I've seen that you haven't really in our discussions, I've seen him get to the right spots offensively, and today was another example. He used his speed to go wide. Nearly scored, but didn't finish. So, I mean, that's something where you can take confidence in making the rush, but you're lacking confidence because you didn't get it over the glove high enough. So, his game needs to. There's a reason why he was available, Sean. Right? He wouldn't have been available if there hadn't been some flaws to his game. So, I don't think anyone was saying that Rasmus Kupari has been brought here to become the savior, but I think he could be more than a serviceable. We
did hear one media member say that he instantaneously makes this the best Jets fourth line ever.
Right.
So people are saying they haven't heard
bias
this.
Is what happens.
Yeah.
So right, it's
people have been saying like here, Patrick Guizod or Guauzd. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry if I didn't get that. But this hasn't been like an upfront. This has been more of kind of like a behind the scenes media conversation that has been had that I'm responding to here. And again, I want to make it clear. I'm not saying Rasmus Kupari. I'm not saying Kupari is a bust. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the things that I've heard about him, I have not seen yet. And I'm waiting for that time to arrive. And listen, there's a transition that comes with a new team, and he could be right in the middle of making that. He could be right to heading to where everyone expects him to head. I'm just saying, hold the phone. Let's not just say this is what this is this player's scouting report and this is exactly what we're getting. I'm not seeing that happen so far. Sorry.
Sure, no, it's okay. I mean, one of the scouts I talked to thought he had upside of becoming a second line player at some point, but other scouts aren't sure if he's best suited as a winger or a center. So, I mean, it's not a one size fits all when it comes to Kupari, because he has more things to show at this level, and I think the more comfortable he gets, I think the better he'll play. The one thing he will do is play a robust kind of game, and some people talk about the Jets not hitting. I mean, I thought they were involved physically. Like, it's not going to be like 2015, folks. The Jets are not going back to becoming a team that is a 100 hit a game team. That's not the way the game's being played right now. I think they'll be tougher to play against with the likes of Niederreiter and Nemesnikov for a whole season, having Kupari, having Adam Lowry, having Brendan Dillon Sandberg, adding a bit of physical nature to his game. He's had it at every other level to this point, and now that he knows he's becoming a top 4 defenseman, there'll be more of that. Neil Pionk, when healthy, is a physical defender. So I don't know that the Jets aren't becoming a team that is bang and crash and run you out of the rink. They're a skilled hockey team that has some players that like to play a physical game. So that's their identity. So stop thinking that they're going to grow into this, team that Brian Burke would love to have. That's just not the way that they're going to be playing. They're going to play hard. They're not going to run the other team out of the rink very often, but they're also not going to get pushed around either. So, yeah, let's keep rolling here. Sorry.
Well, hey, I just wanted to give a shout out and also talk about and welcome. And this one I find is a really interesting one. So Pristine Roofing hopped on board. As a former roofer, I'm going to be totally honest. I know I like to goof around with stuff like this. And believe me, there will be plenty of goofing around when it comes to this sponsor as well. But as a former roofer, I sat down and this is one thing that Ken and I have talked about in the past. We really believe in our sponsors that we talk to. We're going to talk about Cambrian Credit Union right away. Again, we're both customers. My kids have accounts there. We both have our mortgages there. So we kind of like to go in directions where we're making sure the last thing we want is to send you out towards someone to see if they can help you out and they not be what we're suspecting, right? Or what we're expecting. So when we send you to TCB and we tell you the pizza is the best in the city, I truly believe that. I was just back there with my family a little while ago. I love their beer. And that's why I honestly say, hey, I know we talk a lot about the Lamplighter on this show. I love their cold IPA. It's phenomenal. I love their look at that, Ken, right on cue. I love their blueberry beer. It's actually my favorite beer now. I drink it, probably more than I should, but that's something for another day. But sitting down and having a conversation with Pristine Roofing, I really like what I heard from them in the idea that it's really a quality thing. If you want to go and make sure that you've got the job done right, or if you want to make sure, if you've got troubles in your house, air exchange, ice buildup, all those different kind of things. And I don't want to get too inside baseball, but these are the guys who know your home and know how to solve problems. So, when you're out there and you're just looking for a quick fix, these guys aren't that. And they'll be the first ones to tell you that. But in having the conversations with them, having been in that industry and worked it before, they're the kind of company, and I know I own my own company, they're the kind of company I would have absolutely loved to have worked for. And they're the kind of company that their calling card is the actual work they do. They want to walk away from a job and have you turn around and say, these are the guys I use. Make sure you use that. Here's the fun part about them. The guy who goes out and takes care of booking all their jobs, you may know him. His name's North End Rick. We see him on the show quite a bit. He'll be in here taking the piss out of me, taking the piss out of Kenny. I promise you, his work is far, far better than his hot takes on this show. So that's what's going to happen in the future. If you want to go, if you need your roofing done, siding done, exteriors, all these different kind of things, We're going to set you up so you can give North End Rick a call and have Pristine Roofing come out and tell you what needs to be done. And if you so choose to go with them, do the best possible job in the city. Good stuff with them. And I'm just going to go back and we're going to talk about Cambrian Credit Union again. Touched on it quickly. So happy to have them back. They're not the Kenny and Renny OGs, Ken. They're not the Kenny and Renny OGs, but they're sure darn close to it. The second one to sign up with us. They've been around for a long time here. We've been with them for a long time. Like I said, both my kids have the unfee account there. Both of us have our mortgages there. And I have to say, in a time of really high mortgage rates, they provided the flexibility for myself and my family to switch over and get a good rate before all of this kind of stuff was happening. So, it's not just one of these things where you set it and forget it, even if it's a bad situation. They really worked with us to get our mortgage to a place where it really worked for us and our family. I can't say enough about them and the time that we spent with them. So, hey, you got to check them out. Let's move on, Ken. I want to talk quickly about Hellebuyck.
Before we move on, let's remind folks to get their dig deeper comments going here. We've got a couple more shovels before we have exhausted our supply. So we've got one for tonight's game, and I believe there's going to be at least one more for Saturday's home opener. So you folks know how it works. Get your takes in. Your best comment of the night will potentially qualify you for a Dig Deeper snow shovel brought to you by the good folks at Homefield for marketing and more.
No doubt. Excellent stuff. Glad to have them all on board. Like I said, that's one of the things when we look into this, we really like to make sure we're partnering with people who are doing a phenomenal job. We believe we've done that. And that's why so many of them are back. It's a symbiotic relationship. And hey, this is an opportunity to say to everybody out there, thank you for the support that you've given us, but also the support you've given our sponsors, because when we went to them, for the most part, everyone is basically saying we're right back with Kenny and Renny, and that's because of all you out there. Thank you for that.
One quick one before we get into Hellebuyck. Folks, the pop-up that we did on the signings for Hellebuyck and Scheifele, we know it wasn't optimal timing coming on Thanksgiving, but your response was incredible. Our numbers on YouTube were off the charts, and same with the YouTube or with the downloads. Just an exceptional job by the listeners in the last 2.5, 3 days here. Shout out to you folks who continue to support us at an exceptional level. We appreciate it so much.
Hey, so let's talk about Kyle Connor for a second. And just, I mean, listen, this is one of those kind of obscure records that he's just tied here, but he now shares an NHL record with 3 other players. He's one of 4 players in the history of the entire game to score in his team's season opener in 6 straight seasons. What do you think that says about Kyle Connor?
I mean, it says he gets prepared. I mean, we watch this guy shoot pucks at practice, not to get too inside baseball, but he has switched sticks to a CCM model this year. Obviously we know that he rang a lot of iron last year, so he changed up the stick, and the stick produced for the 6th consecutive opener. You and I have talked about this before. I think Kyle's going to be back to being a 40-plus goal scorer. Now, it's up to him to show that, but scoring in the opener is probably a good start for him, obviously. I thought he was dangerous in the contest. What I really liked about the Jets' power play, Sean, and it was Connor getting to spots. I thought his puck movement was excellent. He also got himself into situations where he found some quiet ice and wasn't just reliant on a one-timer. He was getting to spots where he could get a pass, a one-touch pass from Ix Alafalo and, Velarde. And some of the cross seams were available, whether it was him to Scheifele or Scheifele to him. So I think Kyle's going to be dangerous this year. I mean, this guy's a pure sniper. Great release. Yes, his numbers were down to 31 goals last year. That's still a great number for most NHL players and even for him. But I expect him to be back, pushing north of 40 this year. And today was a good start on that front.
Take me through what you thought of Hellebuyck's game, because I know that we're getting mixed reviews in the comments here.
Yeah, I mean, Hellebuyck was the second best goalie on the ice. I don't think that we can hide that. I don't think he was horrible. There's some folks making ridiculous takes. Like, Hellebuyck was the Jets MVP last year, and it was, Josh Morrissey had an unreal year, but Hellebuyck was the MVP. He was the major reason the Jets made the playoffs. They had other big-time contributions from guys like Morrissey and others, but let's not pretend like he's been on decline for a long time. That's simply inaccurate. So like that's wake up territory, Sean. So was he great today? No. He made a couple exceptional saves, including one on AJ Greer early. He made a nice save on Matthew Coronado. Could the Jets have used one or two more saves? Of course they could. If they get one or two more saves, they win the hockey game. But a bad goaltending did not cost the Jets the game. A couple of miscues and, the inability to cash in on some of those grade A opportunities. That's why they lost the hockey game. I mean, do I think Connor Hellebuyck would have been thrilled with his performance? Absolutely not. But I also don't think he would have been down in the dumps and that he, somehow let in a bunch of stinkers. I mean, no chance on the game winner. Like that's a backdoor tap in. So nothing he could do there. I don't think he would have loved the Rasmus Anderson goal. One other goal came from distance, but the other folks getting fired up about the Mackenzie Weegar goal. Watch the replay closely. Obviously, Hellebuyck didn't see it because his glove didn't go up until the puck was in the back of the net, and that was when the reaction is that slow. You can't see the puck because if he can see it, more often than not, he stops it. I mean, we talk about this all the time. We know the deals don't kick in until next year, but there's going to be a period of time where both Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele, whether they admit it publicly or not, are going to just have to relax and play hockey and not worry about living up to the contracts. I mean, that will take care of itself. They earned their money. Just play hockey and do what you do best. And, I thought Hellebuyck made some good saves in the first period. And, as the game went on, Markstrom was just the better goalie. But here's the other part. There's so much pressure. Markstrom was a sub 900 save percentage goalie last year. He went from being a Vezina finalist to barely hanging on to the job. So there was some urgency shown by the guy at the other end of the rink. And, sometimes the guy at the other end makes more saves, and that's what happened today.
I know that there's some people in here that were pretty concerned with this. I mean, some people were saying, like going all out and, using this as an example of saying that's a bad contract extension. I mean, and it's interesting, right? This is kind of what you want to see. And there was this storyline about how this would not revitalize the Jets, but give the Jets this boost of energy. Those two players signing after a training camp where it looked like they needed a boost of energy. I think you come out here tonight, you want to respond the way that Mark Scheifele responded, right? So I thought you take a look at this game here tonight, and I think you think, okay, after you sign a big deal, you want to kind of show off to the fans that this was a great deal and kind of build on that. Mark Scheifele did that tonight. I'm not going to go and place this loss on Connor Hellebuyck. I'm not going to do that. But I will say I don't think this is the game that he wanted to play following up this big announcement, right? And I do know at one point, there was the 3 goals on 12 shots. I was starting to think to myself, if he lets in another one here, is there a chance that he may get pulled? Right. I do think that there's room for that in situations like that. If you consider you've spent the money, you've brought Laurent Brossoit, and I think Laurent Brossoit earned a respect that got him that contract, and he's back into the fold here. I don't think this can be business as usual as it's been in the past. Last year, I get it. David Riddick wasn't the goaltender that they needed carrying them down the stretch, so they played a lot of Connor Hellebuyck. The year before that, I think we thought it was inexplicable how Comrie was not getting more time. We both thought that he'd earned it. It seemed strange that it wasn't happening. That can't happen this year. So I don't have a problem with a game like that. Let's say that there was another goal that went in and all of a sudden Connor Hellebuyck's let in 4 goals on 15 shots. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have pulled him, although I do think the idea of a coach pulling his goaltender after he signs a deal to make him a lifelong Winnipeg Jet, it probably wouldn't have happened. So maybe you don't do it in that situation because you don't want those headlines. Connor Hellebuyck pulled his first game after signing a deal that makes him a lifelong Winnipeg Jet. And then you get the people saying, well, we're stuck with this now, right? I guess the point I'm making is in games like it was tonight. And I will say this, I thought down the stretch, Connor Hellebuyck kind of stood up and kept them in the game, put them in a position to tie that game up. I don't really, fault him for the game-winning goal or anything like that. But I would say in a game like this where he's allowed 3 goals on 12 shots and he's getting to the, if he lets another one in and all of a sudden it's 4 goals on 15 shots, these should be the kind of games outside of the extenuating circumstances that they really should be looking to go to Laurent Brossoit and allow Laurent Brossoit to try and provide them with that spark and that boost that you're paying him for. Keep in mind in this situation, Laurent Brossoit and Connor Hellebuyck went toe-to-toe in the first round of the playoffs last year, and Laurent Brossoit was the better goaltender. I'm not sure there's a lot of people who would have thought that would be possible, but that's what we saw in the playoffs last year in that situation. Laurent Brossoit has earned the opportunity that he's back here. And what it should be is, I'm not saying it should be a full-on 2-headed monster, but it should be a big head and at least, that little head on the side of the monster popping out there. It should be more of a 2-man system than we've seen in the past. And tonight, a game like tonight, if you find that game happening in November, February, whatever, it shouldn't be a game that they should shy away from taking Laurent Brossoit and throwing him in and trying to make him make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the Anderson goal, I didn't find the Mangiapane goal. I mean, the puck kind of just bounced on his stick. That wasn't a soft goal. The Lindholm goal wasn't a bad goal. I mean, the shorthanded goal wasn't great. It was a wrister, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
he wasn't on top of his game.
The second one. No, exactly. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I would say the most important thing we should discuss when it comes to the 2-headed monster, the Jets need to play Laurent Brossoit 25-plus games. I mean, I think that a good number for Hellebuyck would be 55 to 57 starts, somewhere in that range. It doesn't need to be. It shouldn't be north of 60 this year. And I think that's something that Connor even kind of openly expressed kind of for the first time in training camp that he was okay with that. So I would say that the Jets have got to get towards that point. And, I'm curious. I mean, if you're the Jets, do you start Brossoit against the Vegas Golden Knights, his old team, next Thursday, or do you play him Tuesday against the LA Kings? I mean, I think it's worth kind of looking into. Or sorry, I might have the schedule just a little bit intermittently mingled here.
Yeah, you'd think he's going to get in one game in the first 3 games here. I would think that that's what we would expect to happen in that situation. Okay, just a quick one, Ken. Before, because we got to quickly dig into the defense, but because we haven't talked about it enough.
I have the schedule. Sorry,
you've touched on it a little bit here. Just quickly, did you see the Pierre-Luc Dubois hit? And do you have any expectation? You did. Okay. Well, I guess what I take away from it is I don't think that we're going to see him in Winnipeg on when that game happens. It is a blatant knee. It's not only a knee, he's lined up for the knee, but at the last second he sticks his leg out even further. So it wasn't a good one. An interesting start for him in LA. I guess he wants to kind of play that rat role. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him in Winnipeg. Okay, quickly, let's just break it down here because we don't want to take people. I mean, thank you so much for staying this late into it for as it is right now, but just give me your breakdown of the defense quickly, and we'll shut this thing down.
Yeah, I mean, work in progress, but overall didn't mind it. I would say there were some issues at times on the third pairing, and I'm on record. Check the receipts. I generally enjoy when the Jets play Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt together. They're good buddies. They've both played shutdown roles in on different teams at times. When they're on top of their game, they can be in a very effective pairing. I thought they got hemmed in on a few shifts today, but that's 5-man units. I'm not pointing fingers at these guys, but I mean, I don't think either one would say it was their best effort. In terms of the second pairing, I liked what I saw from Dylan Sandberg. I liked Neil Pionk's game for the most part. I thought there were more signs of him getting back to the kind of guy that he wants to be. Dylan DeMello, steady, I thought, in the contest, and I like Josh Morrissey's game overall. I mean, defensive things are going to happen with incorporating new people into his system. Overall, I thought Morrissey activated when necessary. I thought he made a really smart play to get Mark Scheifele into a position to score the game-tying goal. And overall, I would say that the defense core had its moments, and other moments where they needed to be a little bit better in terms of coverage and some of the other things. So didn't mind it overall, but again, much like everything else, room for improvement. But I would say Josh Morrissey had a nice start, and we've talked about this, and we've seen Josh around the room joking about this, but Josh wants to elevate his play. And he had an exceptional year last year, but he wants to be even better, and he wants those folks who didn't have him higher on the Norris ballot to consider having him higher on the Norris ballot, because he's going to earn it.
I'm going to give you my breakdown, but before I do that, it was called earlier in the show, and I don't want to leave it too late. Let's make this Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Here we go. Let's do this quick because we so appreciate that people stayed up this late. Okay, finish your thing.
One last thought on Schmidt, folks. Folks that are ready to just send him on a plane out of town. Nate hasn't played since the first exhibition game. So,
exactly.
Yes, there were some issues, but you got to give a player more than one game of rope here. Yes, Declan Chisholm's in the press box ready to go soon, and he may get a chance soon, but you're not pulling a guy after one game, and it wasn't Nate Schmidt's fault and Nate Schmidt's fault alone the Jets lost the hockey game. So take a deep breath. It's an 82-game schedule. If Nate Schmidt struggles for an extended period, then there will be changes. But let's take a breath here. It's one game.
I agree with this by Blake, who says Sandberg was down low in the offensive zone quite a bit. I thought he had a really good game. He showed really well. I think for the most part, yes, there was some like I said, this game to me is the Jets getting to the Rick Bowness system, playing that system for the most part, generating a lot of shots. I'll say it again. They were the better team tonight. And one of the reasons why is the defense were extremely aggressive all night. And what you saw time and time again is the defenseman, when Calgary breaks it down up the one side, the defenseman stops and he goes after him instantaneously. He's not waiting. He's not allowing him to come into the zone. Hey, you see Kyle Connor's goal where the defenseman just keeps backing up and Kyle Connor uses him as a screen and boom, it's through the legs. And yeah, it was a little bit of a softie, but that's what happens when you use a guy as a screen. The Jets defensemen weren't doing that. The Jets defensemen are jumping up and they're going straight after you. They're not waiting for you to come to them. They're walking up and they're punching you in the mouth. And they're able to do that because as they go for that player, the other Jets defenseman is coming all the way across the ice to pick up the puck that you've just jarred loose by jumping on the guy. I thought that the play by all three defense partners was really on par, like right on cue when it came to this. They did a really good job at that. The system that they're trying to play that had them get so many shots here tonight and be the better team in the game everywhere except for on the scoreboard. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take the defense to play like that. So the one thing I take away from this is the defense core is at least entirely on board with that. It looks like it's ready to play the style of game that gave them so much success for the first half and a little bit more of last season. Yes, they made some mistakes, but I take a look at it and I think this is, if I'm a coach and I'm saying, listen, you don't win every game. And sometimes you win games that you don't deserve, and sometimes you don't win games that you do deserve. I think I take a look at this and say, I like where my defense was for the most part. Yeah, we got to clean up some mistakes, but we do that, and we play like we did here tonight. I'm going to like where we're at, and I'm going to end with exactly what you were talking about. Had some really interesting conversations with Josh Morrissey. I'll share just a little bit about the idea of what happened when Rick Bowness came in. He said, for the most part with defensemen, and this is kind of from what I was talking about how aggressive the Jets defense was here tonight and how they were last year and how it worked for the team. Josh Morrissey had an interesting conversation with him where he said, for the most part, coaches want you to do less as a defenseman, right? make the right play, make the outlet, do this, do that, just be clean and be quiet, right? He said what changed when Rick Bowness came in and the new coaching staff. He said rather than being asked to do less, they were asked to do more, make the next move, jump up and try and separate that puck from the player right off the bat. Get that puck back as quick as you can. And that style of play really is something that Josh Morrissey obviously took to, had career season. And I take a look at this game and I have a good expectation. Now, maybe he doesn't reach the point plateau that he did last season, but I think Josh Morrissey is most definitely going to look a lot like he did last season, and definitely a lot more like he did last season than he did earlier in his career. To me, it's locked in. It's the Rick Bowness style that has really allowed Josh Morrissey to be who he is, at his best as a defender. And what I saw tonight was him making moves, jumping up in the zone, really using that hockey IQ to get to the puck faster than other teammates, being aggressive, using his body. He to me, he looked a step ahead for most times tonight. Quarterback the power play really, really well. I think if you take a look at this, and I don't know that a lot of people thought this was a question. I don't think a lot of Jets fans have talked like that, but it should probably have been a question. Is Josh Morrissey, was last year an aberration, and is he going to return to the previous baseline? I don't think that's happening at all. I think what happened last year was Rick Bowness and his coaching staff unlocked a version of Josh Morrissey that he'd always been waiting to be. And I think we can expect to see more of that again this year. Ken, the last word.
Yeah, agreed. I think Josh is going to have a great year, and I think he's going to find himself in the Norris consideration right to the wire here this year again.
No doubt. What time? 1:46 in the morning. We went just over an hour. It's hard for us to keep under an hour. Ken, we were only supposed to do our pop-up Scheifele and Hellebuyck show for a half hour, and it ended up being just under an hour. We can't help ourselves. We love spending time with you, and it's because you all go to the wall for us like you are tonight. 1:46 in the morning. 139 of you in the chat room. We thank you so much for that. Kenny and Renny show going in. Game one. This is the first of our shows where we're giving everything away. Means so much that all of you are along for the ride. And like Ken said, like the amount of people that were tuning into our preseason shows absolutely blows us away. It means the world to us. Thank you for that. We can't thank you enough. And we also want to say, we want to thank our sponsors for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Johnston Group, The Keg, Pristine Roofing, the Trans-Canada Brewing Company, Cambrian Credit Union, and Home Field. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, those conversations do not happen without the help and the support of those sponsors. Thank you so much to them. So if you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate those sponsors and get out to and support them in the name of Kenny and Renny. Thank you so much, everybody. Great to be back. Great to see you all again. And we will do this all over again when we see the Winnipeg Jets and their home opener on Saturday afternoon against the Florida Panthers. See you after the game.